welcome back to the podcast. We are here for part 2 of my interview and discussion with Shulamit. We are talking all about burnout and boundaries in entrepreneurship. It's such a juicy conversation that we had to split it into 2 parts. So let's jump right back in. If you missed part 1, go back to last week's episode to catch up, and then let's get started.
So there is an emotional side to that. And I often we hear about scarcity mindset. This is another thing I don't like in the online world, is this idea of scarcity mindset, because as if it's a problem and as if it's something you just have to change your mind and not feel that way anymore. But our business is our bread and butter. And regardless of what you think, your body knows and responds to this as a survival issue. So it's going to have survival responses. And so until we can address and care for the survival appraisal, the way that your organism is appraising this situation as a threat to your survival, until we can care for that and care for your nervous system, you can't get out of this scarcity. I would say scarcity psychology, which is actually a real thing. Scarcity has an impact on your brain, on your cognition, on your thinking, that puts you in this tunnel. And unless you can work at the physiological and psychological level, this is where scarcity is going to keep you. And it's not in your conscious control. So, and the failed launch, of course, quite naturally puts you in what we call the tunnel. This is part of scarcity psychology. You become focused on survival in the immediate moment and aren't able to think creatively, aren't able to problem solve, aren't able to think in a long term with the long view, because all you're in is like, I'm going to starve, I'm going to die, like your emotions, right? So we need to start at that level. When we have a loss, a failure, a mistake in the business, we have to start at the level, and this comes back to the realistic optimism thing, at the level of the mourning, the grieving, the pain, the loss, the fear, all that stuff. There has to be room for that so that it can relax. And then we get all our CEO capacities, all our creativity, all our skillfulness comes back to us. And then we can see, but it's not just like, oh, you'll be fine.
Dust yourself
It's
off
impossible.
and move on. Yeah,
you can't. It doesn't work that way.
We call it the pit around here. When you're in the pit, you can't just keep grinding. Nothing's going to happen. And it's so funny. I had a smile on your face when you're talking, because I was thinking back to a conversation I had in the DMs just 2 days ago with someone who was in the pit right now. She has had a couple flops in a row. She's feeling embarrassed. She's feeling very upset about what's to come. And she was asking if she should join this program and how's it going to help her and what kind of success are going to be ensured. And I could tell it was this long message, so much emotion in there. And I said, before we even talk, can we just acknowledge that this is hard, and what you're feeling right now is okay. And you don't have to find a solution today. You can let yourself feel the sadness and feel that intense feeling and just let it exist for a minute. You don't need to force yourself through it immediately. Your business is not going to crumble or explode in either direction overnight. You can give yourself some time here so that you're not making a decision in that fight or flight response zone. We don't want that. We want decisions to be made that make sense for you and that feel good for you, beyond just the gut reaction of, I need almost like a lifeline, like I'll do anything for at any cost.
Oh, and this is how people end up in trouble. Right? Maxing out their credit cards, maxing out their line of credit, remortgaging their house for the $100,000 coaching program. Like, we need to be, like you said, in the pit and care for that first, and then come to the decision from a different place. And I'm so grateful to hear that this is the approach that you're taking, because the more of us, even if it doesn't end up in clients, the more of us who share this with people who are struggling, the more beneficial it is for us as a whole, like the entrepreneurial ecosystem as a whole, you know?
Totally agree. And I think before I jump into solutions or strategy for anything, because I have 100 different solutions and strategies we can try for anything. But before we jump into that, we need to actually figure out what the problem is. And another client and I were talking earlier this week, and she said, I'm spiraling. I am second guessing everything. I have so much fear of failure right now. And I said, okay, what does that mean? What would failure look like to you? And at the end of the day, at first, as we're peeling back the layers, it's like, okay, the failure is the judgment or the feelings of being like letting down her husband and all of this, especially after a big decision to go full time on business. But when we broke it down even more, it's like failure would be having to go back to her job. Failure would be not being able to make enough money that she had to go back to her job. And at the end of the day, a lot of it comes down to money. And I'm like, okay, so let's make you money. Like, you need to get over this fear and objection of, I don't want people to pay me, because you are amazing. You are providing an extremely valuable service. We have so much testimony that describes the transformation that your business provides to people. This is what we're focusing on. You're not taking money from people in a sneaky way or manipulating them. Predatory. Exactly. You are offering a service that they want, that they're benefiting from, and they are happy to invest in that with you. It's a reciprocal relationship. That's what I'm always trying to explain about selling. As long as you are running an ethical, human-centered business, it's a give and take relationship. They're paying you in money.
You can look at yourself in the mirror and know that you're in integrity. Yes, exactly. Absolutely.
So it's so common, and people think they're alone, but they're not.
They're not. And I'm so grateful that this is one of the things you say, because in every presentation that I give, every speech I give, every workshop I give, the second last slide before the slide about me is, there's nothing wrong with you.
Yeah, I love that.
Because that's what I want. If the one thing they hear from me is that what you're going through is exactly what we would expect someone in your position to be experiencing. That yes, it's painful and difficult, but also there's absolutely nothing wrong with you. Many other entrepreneurs feel this way and have had this experience. It's inherent in the work we do. Mental health challenges are inherent in entrepreneurship. It's not you, it's entrepreneurship.
Absolutely.
So there's nothing wrong with you, right? That is the most important message.
So it sounds like you, as a therapist in this approach, are kind of teaching this in a twofold way, because yes, there is the benefit in terms of isolation of literally removing yourself from isolation and finding community and finding mentors and finding safe spaces. But it's also an internal teaching where you think you are alone in this, but you're not. So it's that mental isolation piece where you are telling yourself that you're the problem. If you were only better at XYZ, this wouldn't be happening. And you really, like, in a self-centered way, which is the way that humans are, believe that everything is your fault. That's the isolation piece there. But it's also the physical and literal isolation of working in your home office by yourself in your basement all day and hoping someone reaches out to you and wants to work with you.
It's all that.
Do you find that when you're working on one, the other one comes a bit more naturally? If we're working on someone's internal belief systems and how they see themselves and how they're self-isolating, does it make people more open or more willing to seek out community, or do we see them as completely different things?
Well, from a nervous system point of view, they're related, because part of the stress response is withdrawing. And so community, there's an irony in it, because community addresses isolation, but also if you're shit talking yourself, then it makes it hard, the stress response. We have the fight, flight, freeze, fawn. But women, so that research was done on men only. Women have a stress response. In addition to that, that's sometimes called tend and befriend. So we care for, tend to ourselves, and we tend to others, and we befriend ourselves and befriend others. And so sometimes our stress response can be to reach out to others, to connect, right? To break our isolation. But sometimes we can be so much in our stress response that we have difficulty doing that. So it's a nuanced relationship.
No, that makes a lot of sense to me, because I'm definitely someone who, if I make a mistake or something embarrassing happens, I need to tell everyone. I need to tell everyone. The more people I tell, the more I feel like I'm getting my power back. I'm like, let's make it funny. I need to tell everyone. I'll blast it on social media. I'm like a chronic oversharer. And I think it comes from that of I need to get this off of just me and release it onto everyone else. The other thing I wanted to say about when you're not open to community, let's say you do take the risk and you do try and insert yourself into a community, there's risk there too, because depending on where you have found this community and where you're putting yourself, it could go either way. It could be the greatest thing you ever do. I mean, it could be neutral, but it also could exacerbate the feelings in any way. If you're in a room with people who are allegedly not experiencing any of this stress and their businesses are flourishing or they're years ahead of you in a completely different niche, whatever it is, that can exacerbate your feelings of, okay, well, it's working for everyone else. It's not working for me. So that's something to be mindful of as well. You want to find a community that is more than just the vibe that fits you. You want to find people that are at a similar, I want to say similar level in business as you, because as much as I love having a mixed cohort to show in a community setting, this is where growth can take you. I've been there too. It's more reassuring than just me saying that. I like peer coaching. I think that I've also seen it the other way where people leave calls and they're like, I'm not doing enough. I'm not doing enough compared to all these other people because I'm still in my 9 to 5 because XYZ. And I think it's hard to not do that direct comparison. So I just want to put it out there to be mindful. And the first group that you try, the first coach you try, the first therapist you try, whatever it is, it doesn't mean that if it didn't work out, it's not for you. It's not going to work out. It just means that maybe that wasn't the right fit. And that's totally okay. You just have to keep trying things out. I've left many a coaching programs after paying in full because I am such a people pleaser. I will very quickly be convinced to pay in full. And I've left them halfway through because it's actually doing a disservice to me. I will get so anxious trying to get into these rooms and trying to fit in and trying to, second guessing myself and all of this, that it gets to a point where it's detrimental. And you still, as much as relying on professionals and coaches and therapists to help you through is good, you need to be believing in yourself and you need to be confident in yourself as well. And if you're second guessing everything that you're doing and you feel like you can no longer make a choice in your business and you no longer trust yourself to be the CEO of your business, that's a red flag for sure, that you're not in a space that is the right space for you at this point, or maybe ever.
Yeah. If it's undermining you and making you feel worse, it's not a good fit right now. And that's not to trash the thing.
No,
it's just to say, trust your spidey senses. If it's making you feel like crap, it's not right for you right now.
Yeah. And that's exactly how I felt. The programs I've left were amazing coaches. I was getting amazing results from them. That was never in question. The results were good. The coaching was good. The learning was good. But for me, it just was this feeling of self-doubt that I couldn't make any decisions for myself anymore. I had to run everything by the people running the program. And I started second guessing some of the strategy because they didn't feel right to me, but I felt like I needed to do them in order to get the support and this, that, the other. There's just so many nuances to the kind of support that you're getting. And I just wanted to almost like disclaimer, but also reassure that if you have been someone who has tried and you feel like, well, I already tried that and it didn't work, then just let yourself have a minute and know that everyone's different. Programs that work for some people are not going to work for you, but also
it's not you.
It's not you. It's not you. It's just not the right fit for you at this exact point
right now. Yeah.
Which is fine. It's totally fine.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear more about what you do on a day-to-day. Are you doing now still mostly one-to-ones? Are you going back into group? Because I know that was a big pivot for you. So what are you thinking now? Are you doing mostly speaking? Are you writing a book? What is the scoop?
So I have 2 revenue lines in my business. One is the one-to-one work. And I think regardless of what I ever do in the future, really to stay true and honest, I need to continue to do the one-to-one work because it's the front lines of the work that informs the other work I do. And the other work I do is at the ecosystem, at the entrepreneurial ecosystem level, because I think part of our mental health struggles are based in so many of the beliefs or ways of thinking about business that you and I have talked about today as problematic. And they come from incubators, accelerators, business programs, coaching programs, where we hear over and over again things that imply there's something wrong with us. And so I want at the ecosystem level for programs to integrate the assumption that mental health challenges are inherent in entrepreneurship. And therefore, just like we mitigate our challenges in business by making plans, we have a business plan, we have a financial plan, a marketing plan, we have cash flow forecasts. We also need a mental health plan for the founder. And it has to be part of our business planning and also part of our day-to-day business processes. And there's a way to do that. And that's what I want to see integrated at the ecosystem level. And so I'm working through advocacy, through speaking and teaching and consulting to make that change there. But what I'm advocating at that level comes from the work I do with the women who are doing the work.
I have chills because this is one of my biggest hills I will die on, is that you cannot teach something that you don't have experience in. And nothing grinds my gears more than a business coach who has never run a business other than business coaching.
Oh dear.
Or someone selling a course on passive income, but that's the first time they've ever done passive income. I remember so I scaled a B2C business for teachers to multi six figures years and years. And then I just switched to business coaching just over a year ago. But I remember when I was in that space, I felt so frustrated by all of the coaches who I just felt like didn't get it. They were so out of touch. They were using strategies that only worked for B2B businesses. They weren't going to work for me. And it's just adding to that feeling of isolation and adding to that feeling of you just don't get it. No one understands me. No one understands what I'm going through. So keeping that one-to-one component is something that I agree. I'm always going to do it as well. I am someone who loves relationships. I love client wins. Nothing excites me more than a client who has gone through a pivot and now is like coming to life. That's the only way I can describe it. They're coming to life. Things are happening. It's all clicking. That is the best feeling for me. And I could never let that go and go into a fully, this is how you're going to scale and this is how you're going to make the most money and da, 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 da. I think a lot of the time as women, what we truly want to do is help. And what we want to do is spread what we know to be true and where we know the world can go so that everyone that we can help has that support from us. And I definitely feel that from you. And as much of a huge impact I know you would be able to make if you completely took all those one-to-ones off your schedule and just focused on this more ecosystem-based approach, I think it's really special that you're keeping those on your calendar as well.
They're my peeps.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
Okay, well, is there anything else that you think we should touch on before we wrap this episode? I feel like it was so juicy. People need to listen to it more than once and just sit after and digest. That's what I'm going to do after this. I'm going to sit and drink my coffee and I feel so like warm inside right now because it's so validating and encouraging to speak to people who have similar beliefs and see entrepreneurship in the same way. And I just feel so happy. So thank you so much for coming on. But is there anything that you wanted to mention or bring up before we wrap the episode?
Well, first, I want to say I'm having the same warm, fuzzy feelings because it's, we're both taking an approach that is not the mainstream. And this is the value. It is sad. I would like to see the whole world do things this way, 100%. But right here, we're experiencing the value of what we're preaching, which is connection with like-minded others and validation for one another. Because as much as what I'm saying validates you, what you're saying is validating me, right? And that feels so good. So I'm feeling the warm fuzzies and a lot of appreciation also.
Good. And I just know that everyone listening is going to feel that too. Like we're just creating a little warm, fuzzy ball of energy right now.
Yes. And the other thing, I'll say it again, we've said it a bunch of times, but I think it's the note to end on, is there's nothing wrong with you.
Nothing. There's nothing wrong with you. You are doing enough and there's nothing wrong with you.
Yeah.
I love it.
What you're doing is hard, and you have the skills to do it. There's nothing wrong with you.
I want that on a t-shirt.
Yes.
It'd be so good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, again, thank you so much. And at the beginning, before we started recording, Shulamit and I were talking about how we're actually so close geographically together. So I'm looking forward to the day where we can just have this warm, fuzzy feeling in person.
In person, in 3D.
I know, which feels so rare and special in the entrepreneurial space. So that's great. Yeah. And again, just thank you so much for coming on and talking about us. I'm going to put all of her links and content and all of that in the show notes, so you can go ahead and check those out. And I would encourage everyone to just see how it feels to have a different kind of support in your business. It is so common to outsource to a social media manager, to hire a coach, to get a VA. I've had a fractional COO for the past few months. There's those kind of things where it's very directly linked to business and there's a quote unquote ROI, are very common to see in your business. But I would encourage you to maybe think that your next investment shouldn't be so internal in your business. It should be internal to yourself. And investing in your mental health, investing in yourself as the founder, is completely essential. I say this time and time again, your business is nothing without you. You are the sun in the solar system of your business. And if your light is dimming, you are getting burnt out. There's going to be nothing left in your business or in your life outside your business, because it is just one part of your life. So if you are considering what to invest in for 2025, how to ensure that your business is going the way that you want it to be going, I mean, of course, you can come and work with me. Would love to see that. But I'd also love to see you investing in your mental health. So I'd encourage you to just go and check out what Shulamit's offering and what's going on over there. Because if this episode spoke to you and you're feeling like that is a missing link for you, this could be your sign to explore that avenue.
Yes. And I would invite folks to sign up for my newsletter for more conversations like these, because this is the in-depth type of content that I share in my newsletter. I'll be sharing this podcast with my newsletter folks. So it's shula.ca/newsletter. And as you said, that'll be in the show notes.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us. And
thanks, Mariah.
I'll see you soon.
Yes.